With over 1,500 airplanes, 353 destinations, and over 200 million passengers carried each year, American Airlines has long been the world's largest airline. Based in Dallas, Texas, American has been a global force in the airline industry for nearly 100 years, both inside and outside the country. Today we are not at Dallas, but they're hubbed to the north in Chicago's O'Hare Airport, which is consistently ranked in the world's largest airports. I mean, just look here at the amount of sister cities of Chicago. It really is a city of the world, and makes sense why so many people end up here for vacation or business. To get our own slice of Chicago's aviation culture, we'll be trying their flagship American Airlines experience today out to Venice. Timestamps will be down below. Now let's go to Italy. O'Hare has 4 terminals in use. 3 largely used by the domestic carriers, and the other, Terminal 5, with the international arrivals facility, and therefore hosting most foreign carriers. Terminal 2 is the smallest one with the random per se carriers, but the main terminals here are 1 and 3. Terminal 1 is host to United Airlines and some of their partners, of which O'Hare is United's largest hub. It's got tons of history, but that's for a later video because we are in Terminal 3 today, which is home to American Airlines and some of their partners. The curb clearly labels the priority check-in, but much like their other hubs, there isn't anything totally special about the priority check-in area, besides having less people and therefore no lines. I just like when airlines decorate the check-in for premium customers, even having enclosed or private areas in some places, something that the US carriers are just figuring out. The whole of Terminal 3, by the way, because of the Olympics presumably, is decked out from head to toe in American flags and red, white, and blue. But I guess when your name is American Airlines, you've got a reputation to live up to. Through security, Terminals 1 through 3 are all connected inside security with buses to Terminal 5. That said, there's no shortage of things to do in this airport. Things like food courts everywhere you look. They've got sports-themed restaurants centered around Chicago's home teams, along with their parking garage levels matching the same theme. They've got the historic rotunda that's been around forever, but now houses restaurants and a yoga room. You can learn about an assortment of American heroes or the history of Chicago O'Hare's airport. There's a cheap massage parlor for all passengers to access. You can play the lottery to win back the cost of your flight or die trying. They have a family area to get the energy out of the kids before a flight. If you really want to feel like a local, you can get a Chicago dog at the Skyscraper Bar, or, even better, get yourself some Garrett popcorn. And that's still not everything, considering there's a full dinosaur skeleton in Terminal 1. Heck, they even got a UPS store outside security just in case those checked bag fees get a little too high. And across from that has to be one of the world's few airport-based dentists. My other favorite thing about O'Hare is the amount of places I've slept in this airport. Back in college, I would take the bus up to Chicago to save some money on my flights home for holiday. Of course, the bus timing was never great, so I got real good at finding the quiet spots in the airport to sleep overnight, inside and outside security. And now I just walk around here and reminisce. I mean, seriously, I've slept here, 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 and here, and that's just to name a few. Otherwise, the rest of this video would just be about the places I've crashed at O'Hare. I mean, seriously, I feel like this sign at the check-in curb exists solely because of me at this point. And of course, now my school has its first airline service since 2002, after I've already graduated and moved on. Before heading to the lounge, there is one more hot topic we have to discuss, and I'm dying to get y'all's opinion on it. There is a never-ending debate about whether Terminal 1 or 3 is the best terminal at O'Hare. As mentioned, Terminal 1 is home to United Airlines and it has some iconic architecture. To support the expansion of United Airlines in Chicago, the old Terminal 1 was demolished in the early 80s and the new one opening a few years later. Designed with 2 long concourses of gates, 1 landside and 1 satellite concourse, the setup of retail and gates is meant to resemble a bustling city street of Chicago. Check out these vaulted ceilings with natural light. It makes for a historic look that people picture and post daily. And that doesn't even include the most famous part, the tunnel between the 2 concourses with rainbow lighting and sequencing lights on the ceiling, which makes it feel like you're moving faster than you really are. Contrast that with Terminal 3, which is the American Airlines home, and we see even more iconic architecture. With an expansion in the same time as Terminal 1, the terminal made space for a major growth of American Airlines in Chicago as well. By the way, if you've seen Home Alone, you'll know this terminal well. The main wing leads to the mainline American Airlines flights and has all these flags. Most of the year they have flags for different countries, but for now, as with check-in, it's all American flags for now. But you can see the signs where the other flags used to be, and they'll be back soon. Terminal 3 is also kind of fun since each wing of gates is a different style, with the G gates for regional flights, the L gates that house the low-cost carriers like Spirit, and the newer branch of L gates with more regional flights, then the H and K gates which are down that famous hallway. But which terminal do you like more, United's Terminal 1 or American's Terminal 3? At the fork of the H and K gates, we can go either way to reach the FLAGSHIP Lounge considering it's in a hallway that connects the two concourses. As some of you may know, American has their Admirals Club for club members or day passes, and then the FLAGSHIP lounges which require an international first or business class ticket. The lounges in Chicago actually share an entrance, but are located on different floors. In the door, there's a short queue, and then we scan our boarding pass. Behind the counters is a hallway to the elevators leading to the lounge. Passengers that are allowed into the FLAGSHIP Lounge are given a card. Everyone gets in the same elevator, goes up one floor to the FLAGSHIP Lounge or 2 floors to the Admirals Club. Welcome to Chicago's American Airlines FLAGSHIP Lounge. They collected our cards at the door, and then we had plenty of time to explore before our flight. Moving from one side of the lounge to the other, we'll start with the buffet, which has a ton of tables and a self-service champagne bar. There's 2 counters of food, one of them's more snacky items with antipasti, veggies, and sushi. The other counter with the actual protein, such as chicken and fish. The back wall has the full self-serve bar and drink fridge. Honestly, a great selection of items, better than pretty much any other lounge. There's also an employee serving up shrimp penne pasta next to the dessert choices, which is on the counter above the wine fridge below. The rest of the lounge is basically all seating, but they did find a way to separate it into private spaces. One of the biggest problems in some lounges is that the seating is in bigger groups, so you either share the space with others, or it renders some of the seats unusable. I found that the setup of seats in this lounge made it so that the maximum amount of seats could be used comfortably. This is one of the busier times of the day, but there was definitely seats available for those who needed some. Scattered around the lounge in certain areas, you'll also notice these refreshment stands. Coffee, water, fruit, just stuff to keep you comfortable without having to go to the main buffet. Other spaces included the counter along the window, which is great for working since most seats don't have the table in front of the seat. The view is also a big plus of these seats. You have a great view of American's ramp, departing aircraft, and in the distance you can see the Chicago skyline. There's also a media room which had 2 TVs. I didn't see remotes, but if it's like their other lounges, you can ask the lounge attendants for assistance changing the channel. There's a quiet room which is double-sided. One side has lounges for sleeping, which I obviously didn't film because of the people laying down. The other side is just some normal seating. The last way to judge a lounge is by their showers. There seemed to be about 5 shower suites bookable at reception. I didn't have any wait for a shower, so I was able to go right in. Maybe I'm spoiled with the Polaris showers and SFO, but the rest of the world seems to have much smaller rooms for the most part. Although I will say that the space available here is more than sufficient. After that, it was time for boarding. Over at our gate, K-15, our aircraft was ready for us with the crew on board. I've always thought the design of the terminal here at O'Hare makes these planes look extra large through the window. Probably just because of the height of the terminal and also how close the plane parks to the window. American boards by group after pre-boarding. Being business class puts us in group 1, so once they began the pre-boarding, I could get in line for the boarding in the priority lane. After the one single pre-boarder, I was the first person on board, so I welcome you all on board American Airlines' 787-9 business class. American has a similar seat in all wide-body aircraft, just in a bit different configuration. This 121 front-facing reverse herringbone cabin is what we've got at least until the end of the year when they start to introduce the business class seats we discussed in my video on American Airlines First Class a couple weeks ago. One thing that I will say is that I love that United and Delta both have their fairly unique business class seats. American, on the other hand, uses a setup that's seen in many other airlines. Just kind of a bummer to see the lack of individuality. The headrest of the seat isn't adjustable and it is a bit firm. At least you can use a pillow with it though. The rest of the seat is actually pretty comfortable and has a typical American type design to it. Along the aisle, there's kind of a partition. It offers about 10% privacy. There's an armrest below it which can be raised up to add a little more privacy, but I wouldn't say the seats are overly private. At least these armrests open up and give you a little extra in-seat storage. There's a big touchscreen TV in front of you above the tray table which slides out with the release switch below it. And below that is the footwell. It's definitely bigger than the 787-8 seats and has some space below it, except that space can't be used for taxi takeoff and landing. There are 2 windows at each seat except for row 5, something that's fairly normal on the 787-9, so I guess avoid booking row 5 if you can. The space below the window serves 2 purposes. For one, it's a counter to use, which is great since the tray table isn't big enough for food and a laptop. It's also good for the storage within. There's 2 cubbies. The first one is definitely the biggest and has the charging ports and TV remote. The other cubby is shallow but big enough for amenities or maybe chargers. Then over your shoulder next to the literature pocket is the reading light. Below the counter is a few things as well. The seat controls on a little touchscreen panel here, and that's next to the immovable armrest on this side. Lastly, below that is one last storage cubby that I didn't use because I was convinced that I would leave behind anything that I put in there. The last thing that I will give big time perks to for American is the individual overhead air vents. As they fade away on wide-body aircraft, we gotta appreciate it even more when we do have them. Amenity-wise, we got slippers at the seat, but no PJs. We also got Bang & Olufsen headphones. Honestly, they're some of the better headphones out there on airplanes, just a bit heavy. Strangely enough, we also got non-noise cancelling earbuds. We got to choose between water, OJ, or sparkling wine in a plastic cup for the pre-departure beverage. There were 2 pieces to the bedding. We got a pillow, which is one of my favorite all-time pillows on an airplane. Like, this is a pillow I would use at home on my bed. Then we got a comforter, which was somewhat thin, but I found to be perfectly comfortable and large enough for sleep. I was also excited because this was the first time I've gotten one of their new amenity kits. They love abnormal bag shapes since their last one was a rectangular cube with the zipper on the corner. They also updated the contents inside the bag. It's actually the same items but different brands. The only items really worth talking about was the body lotion and lip balm, however. Quick story time because this exact seat was actually my first ever lie-flat seat. Back in 2019, I was flying from Dallas to Los Angeles on a 787-9, and at check-in there was a $50 upgrade available. Being that I had never been on a long-haul flight at the time, and also never having been on a 787 even, I spent the money and got seat 2L. I still remember how crazy it was getting on board. It was the first time I got on an airplane and turned left. I remember seeing these seats and being amazed with the product. Obviously, since then I've flown a bunch more business class seats, but this one still holds a special place in my heart. Believe it or not, however, until a few months ago, I still had never done a long-haul flight with American Airlines. I planned a trip from Dallas to Seoul in business class to make a video about my first ever time in American's long-haul business class, but there was some extra circumstances that occurred, but I'm saving that to be covered in a later video. This is still the first time I've covered this cabin on the channel at least, even if it's my second time experiencing it. American's entertainment system is strong. Honestly, most North American carriers have incredible selections. There's a great assortment of genres to sort by with loads of options in each one, made easier by adding things to favorites, accessible on the homepage in its own section. The TV shows is more of the same, and each show does have a few episodes, but not full seasons, unfortunately. Where they really thrive, however, is that they partner with subscription services to offer a few episodes of favorite shows from places like Apple TV and Showtime. The screen has other things like the Wi-Fi information and menus, plus the fully adjustable map with all different map settings and views. American does offer in-flight Wi-Fi on these flights. After connecting, it directs us to their portal where we can access entertainment on our personal devices and purchase Wi-Fi. Of the US carriers, American has the most expensive Wi-Fi on long-haul flights with $29 for 2 hours or $35 for the full flight. I did purchase the Wi-Fi since I had work to do, but honestly it was one of the slowest and most intermittent Wi-Fi systems I've ever used. You know, I like to show the speed test for the Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi was so slow I literally couldn't even load the speed test. We were given a menu before departure and placed our order. The trifold menu had English and Italian and described the 2 meals we'd be getting, including a dinner service after departure and breakfast service before arrival, in addition to snacks and drinks available on demand mid-flight. The meal service started with a hot towel and then a drink service with warm nuts while they prepped the dinner. I chose to go with Dr. Pepper since I can't not get it when it's available. There was 4 options for the dinner service, but by the time they got to me, they had ran out of 2 of them already. So I was left with the chicken or vegetarian option. What you're looking at here is the grilled chicken with chili roasted potatoes, cojita cheese, sautéed spinach, and a smoked tomato sauce. It also comes with a pan-seared shrimp with fruit relish and a mango gazpacho, and the arugula salad, which was one of my favorite airplane salads I've ever had. It may not have been my first choice, but it was still an incredible meal, honestly. I was just a bit bummed to have a one-tray service, but maybe it has something to do with the flight length. I don't really know. For dessert, I chose to go with the ice cream sundae. The flight attendant suggested some toppings and I rolled with it, and it was actually a really good sundae. I just found the ice cream to be crazy hard. And after collecting the meal supplies and dimming the lights, every passenger was given a water bottle for sleep. Speaking of which, we've only got about 9 hours of flight time and we just spent 2 hours on takeoff and dinner, so let's get the seat flat and get some rest before the breakfast service. The only problem with the long-haul flights that don't leave from the West Coast since you lose a couple hours of sleep just based on your departure point. The pillow that we saw earlier fills this spot perfectly, making it extra comfy, especially for people who like firmer pillows. Then the comforter from Casper, which is oversized for the seat size, making it great for tossing and turning, getting overly comfortable in your seat. Honestly, the reverse herringbone setup actually makes for a comfortable bed, especially in this configuration. I find the seat to be wide enough to sleep however you like. The biggest debate is whether or not to lift the armrest along the aisle. If you do raise it, it offers you extra privacy while you're asleep. The drawback is that it robs some of your seat width. It's up to you, however, but I chose to leave it up during sleep to give me a little bit of extra privacy. I actually found the footwell to be plenty wide enough for you to get comfy, multiple foot lengths wide and space above your feet, so if you want to sleep on your back or your side, you'll be comfy. By the time I woke up, the sun had risen, but they had dimmed the windows so that it wasn't overwhelming the cabin. This was a great time to test out those mid-flight snacks they touted on the menu, which were available for grab up on the front bulkhead. They had a number of sweet and savory snacks and bottles of water. Spent pretty much the rest of the flight either working or exploring. Speaking of which, I had to check out the restrooms on board American Airlines 787s, and it's good to see them stick on brand. With the fake wood paneling behind the sink, the fake tile pattern on the floor, it's very American, specifically very American Airlines. I also am a huge fan of their hand soap, although I heard they might be going in a different direction going forward. Kind of a bummer, I've grown to like this scent. Finally, the lights began to come up and it was time for our breakfast service. There was only the 2 breakfast options, either the frittata or the fruit and yogurt. I chose the fruit option. Not only did we get a good plate of fruit, but also a Greek yogurt and some absolutely incredible granola, all to go along with the black tea to wake me up as we arrive into Venice midday. Unfortunately, they do collect the headsets before arrival, so I guess that's why they give us those earbuds as well. Now obviously, an airline as large as American is bound to have a storied past, right? Well, we're actually approaching the 100th anniversary of the airline, meaning that it's a good time to look at how they revolutionized the industry and set a whole bunch of firsts, along with some of the other airline giants at the time. Back when airlines were first being born, at least in the US, there was seemingly hundreds of individual small carriers. In 1926, American Airlines was founded simply by merging a collection of those different airlines. As a matter of fact, by 1930, American had grown by merging 82 different smaller carriers. Initially, American made their money by carrying mail, something that almost every airline did in that time in order to grow their brand recognition, as air travel wasn't entirely normalized yet. It took until 1933, however, for them to finally achieve their first trip across the country, connecting New York with Los Angeles with 8 stops in between. Once they completed this, they looked into San Francisco as well in order to grow their national presence, and a year later they finally, officially, became American Airlines. As their transcontinental push was strengthening, they partnered with Donald Douglas to be the first to fly the DC-3, which they proudly made their flagship aircraft, even painting flagship on the side of each aircraft. This growth brought them to be the world's first airline to turn a profit from a route with passengers only, no mail. It was clear that they'd need a new hub to facilitate this rapid expansion, so partnering with Fiorello LaGuardia, they got a new airport built for them in New York. I'll give y'all one guess as to what that airport is. With LaGuardia complete, American opened the world's first airport lounge location. Dubbed the Admirals Club, named because they claimed that their passengers were the admirals of their flagships. The Admirals Club actually existed before LaGuardia, but wasn't a physical thing, more of a status thing. It was opened by invitation and included mostly celebrities, VIPs, politicians, and customers who were particularly loyal, until a discrimination lawsuit in 1974 allowed anyone paid access to a membership. As mentioned, New York to Los Angeles, or more specifically, New York to Glendale, was their first transcontinental route, and once moving to LaGuardia, rolling with their kick of naming everything, the New York to Los Angeles route was dubbed their signature service, and was assigned the prestigious Flight Number 1, which it remains even to this day, even though it once had a fatal accident, which isn't common practice to keep the flight number around. I actually covered that route in my series The Ones if you are curious about it. Just like with LaGuardia, American helped open Dallas-Fort Worth Airport in the 70s to help facilitate more growth, where their main hub and headquarters remains to this day. Keeping with their theme of firsts, they operated the first commercial DC-10 flight, followed by the first ever computer reservation system and first electronic ticketing in 1998. They also released the first ever frequent flyer program around that time as well. In the 90s, American acquired Braniff, which led to an identity shift of sorts. The acquisition gave them a new hub in Miami, leading to a Latin shift. They didn't reach Asia until the 2010s with a more modern fleet, and in the later part of that decade they began trimming their intercontinental routes, focusing on their domestic and Latin routes with pretty much all new growth plans being European-based. They did test out more international routes from their Philadelphia hub to help alleviate the loads on New York, and now the two hubs work in tandem. The pilots of American have asked for more long-haul flights, considering they are well behind Delta and United in that regard, but it just doesn't seem to be part of their strategy. Welcome to Venice, Italy. As we taxi into the terminal, it's a great time to reflect on our final thoughts on American Airlines' 787-9 business class product. American seems to thrive on capacity. Obviously, they are the world's largest airline, and they have the fleet to back it up. If you were to look at their route network, however, you wouldn't even guess it. Both United and Delta have far more international destinations with the exception of Latin America. American has just found their niche with millions of domestic flights. United leads on almost every continent outside the US, however, with Delta typically in second, and American ranking last in most places, like Asian and Oceania routes. They don't even have a single route to Africa. I don't necessarily think this matters if their route structure in the US is solid, however, which it is. It just sounds like the pilots aren't huge fans of that, considering it's more short routes. Unfortunately, however, when looking at any major US carrier, you have to put it head to head with the other two. Personally, I think United offers a far better hard product like the seat and lounge. Delta offers a much better soft product with things like the food offerings, leaving American behind in both categories. Now, I don't necessarily think that the product is bad per se, it just exists in potentially the toughest aviation market in the world, with standards being through the roof. It also doesn't help that the domestic flights are their bread and butter, and those flights definitely don't have the same glitz and glamour that the long-haul routes require. Honestly, if you're big into the One World Alliance, I'm sure you'll enjoy your flight with American. The product's average, but still better than a lot of other stuff out there. If you aren't married to a specific airline or alliance, however, I'm not sure this would be my first choice, or even my second. What do you think, though? Let me know down below, and until next Sunday, safe travels. I'll see y'all next time.